Hello, good afternoon. This is Q&A with Dima, Transformation, Art of Reinvention in the Time of the Pandemic. This is very, very special program because I have one of my oldest and best friends since 1966, Václav Hudeček, who is the best Czech violinist for just about as long as I know him. Because we know each other, of course, since 1966, Concertina Prague. Vasek, welcome here. It's wonderful to have you.
Thank you, Dimka, for invitation. Thank you for how you introduced me. And hello to all your friends and to all who are watching us today.
Well, today, and also as a recording later on with your friends, because I understand you have a very nice weather, yes, in Prague today. Is it warm? Because it's quite chilly here.
Yes, we have about 20 degrees centigrade, very sunny. After 10 days of very cold, we had snowing, freezing now. And also today is the last day of lockdown that we cannot leave the district where we live. So we are now in our house out of Prague, but we cannot go to Prague because this district is called Prague East. And this is different district, so we can only go if we have something to do, to visit a doctor or something like that. But tomorrow is finished, so we can go to Prague to our apartment without permission.
Finally,
This is weather is very different. The weather was very beautiful, and so we were with my wife in the forest walking. It's nice, very fine. We love it.
And how did you do this? Because one of the questions, of course, is traditional. You probably never spend as much time at home as in the last year, in the year of the pandemic. What new have you learned about yourself by being so much at home and when not traveling, and what has been positive of this life?
You know, Dimka, because as you told already, we know each other since 1966. And since 1967, 68, I play concerts all over the world, or I have played concerts. Now I am not playing too many concerts. And in one hand, it is very pleasant to have such a free time. I had time to see my father when he lived. He died in the same year as David Oistrakh in 1974. He was collecting all programs, posters, and of course, I like taking pictures, photography, as you did when you were young. We both took pictures when you came for the first time here. And I have thousands of negatives and thousands of dias and everything and pictures. So I bought a professional scanner for photos and for negative films and positive films. And I spent many days restoring these photographs and digitalizing these photographs and negatives. And I sent you a few pieces where you are with me as well. So it was very nice. It was very nice. I could also think about the life which we spend, wonderful music life with all problems with the system we had here. You remember when you lived in the Soviet Union, it was very relative system. With all these problems, we had a wonderful musical life because thousands of concerts. I probably played up to 10,000 concerts after this almost 55 years. So if I see the young generation nowadays, it's really very difficult here to live as a violinist soloist or as a pianist soloist. You have to get some other profession, like you teach or concert master in some orchestra. So in days when I started, and when you were really good, you won some competition, and the career career became, I wouldn't say easy, because it's never easy, but you have the chance, at least you have the chance that you could be a soloist, and you could only practice and play concerts, not to sit this in school or in the orchestra. So I said, thank you, God. I had such a beautiful life with the music. I met such a beautiful people. Really very few people which I don't like to remember at all, very few, but a lot of wonderful people like you, Dimka. It's really my longest time, almost all life friend. You are my almost all life, since you were 12 years old. That's fantastic. And when I saw and when I saw all these pictures, we played together, and you are 12 and I'm 14, you know. Oh, it was nice, really. So, of course, I am missing the audience, but we up and time we make some recordings, and then we stream it on internet. So the orchestras also, they want to do something for the musicians, so they don't sit at home. They get the salary. Of course, the people who are employed, they got their salary, but the musicians here, they always called concerts like Geschäft, you know, not concert, but we have Geschäft, yeah. And now they always say, oh, I'm looking forward, we will have concert. And they are so happy. And it's really wonderful when we meet without the audience, but only musicians with the orchestra, and we play for the cameras on it. We are so happy we can make music again. And you remember when you were here for Dvořák festival and the competition, we were so happy that we were in the Dvořák hall, sitting, listening, and then we gave the prizes to and we were on the stage without playing, but that it was very, very nice after the first wave of coronavirus. So
yeah, very much. I remember that, you know, because we were sitting together, we were, you know, a part of the jury. We were in the back of the beautiful Rudolfinum, of course, the Dvořák Hall.
And you were president, and I was your deputy.
Vice president. That was funny, yeah. It was such a long time, 54 years at that point, from 66.
Unbelievable, yeah.
Yeah, but there was a similarity in the way I also, first of all, for me, it was such a thrill to hear live orchestra after 6 months not hearing it, because my last concert before was 11th of March, and this was middle of September. I did not hear live orchestral sound, and when they started, and then there was also a chorus and everything, I just never enjoyed orchestra sound as much, because I had goosebumps. And you know,
exactly.
It's just after you miss it. And I'm now waiting. In 3 weeks I will have 77 member orchestra playing Prokofiev's Cinderella, you know, suite in America. I can't wait. It will be a real special. I mean, all the hairs will be up. You know, it's just an adrenaline rush and all of that. But tell me, when we met in 66, of course, I know your life more or less after that, but what happened before? What was your beginning? How did you become violinist, and your background and first teachers and so on?
We lived in Blatna. This is city south from Prague, about 100 kilometers south of Prague. And but I'm not born there. I'm born in a smaller city, but everything is small here. Rožmital pod Třemšínem is called the city I was born, but I was just born like you in Baku, and within 14 days we moved to this city, Blatna. My father was veterinary surgeon, but he played as an amateur violin quite well. He was quite good violinist. No, of course, not like your father. Of course, something different. Yeah, but he was a very good amateur violinist. And I was very naughty boy when I was 5 years old. I liked the matches, to make fire every day, because maybe it was my genes after my grandfather, who was a fireman chief in this area. But he was so when the fire came, he was as a fireman solving the problem with fire, but I was making fire, and really I was so naughty that my father said, if you like this matches wooden things, I will get for you some wood which can help you much more for your education. And the wooden thing was the violin, And my father's opinion was that every person should know to read music, the score, notes, and every person should play some instrument, so that you can touch the music, not only listen, but also touch piano or everything.
Yes.
And he was my first teacher. But he recognized very soon that I am talented, that even I was very lazy boy. I was not practicing, but he told me something and I did it immediately. So he was looking for a teacher for me. So my first teacher was the director of music school in this city, Blatná, Mr. Zahradník. It's in Czech, it means gardener. His surname, Zahradník, is gardener. But he was an organ player. He didn't play violin, but he was my first professional teacher. But soon, and that I never told you, with whom I studied, who was my really violin teacher, first one. And that was Vali Talichová. She was the wife of brother of Václav Talich, great Czech conductor, and grandmother of Jan Talich, and Jan Talich, the quartet father, and you know Honza, Jan Talich, my friend, who is now conductor and wonderful violinist too. So his grandmother was my first teacher, and she lived in Plzeň. This is the city which gave name to the beer, Pilsner.
Pilsner beer, of course. Yeah.
And it was also about 70 kilometers from Blatná, from the city we lived. And one year I went to this lady, wonderful lady, and then I went to Prague to Dr. Micka, who was my teacher. But because I was a young boy and he was professor in conservatoire, and I was really so lazy and naughty. I said this to my father: he will never be a violinist. He's so lazy and he's so naughty. Really? So he gave up teaching. And then I went to Strakonice. It's also very close from this city, Blatná. And there was some competition, and my father gave up already. Said, "Let him, don't bother him with the violin." And so, but my mother said, "Okay, so I will take him to this competition, to Strakonice, and we will see." So I went there. I won this children competition, and there was a professor teacher at this music school in Strakonice, Bohumil Kotmel, who said, "I never saw such a talent in my life," and said, "Please, Miss Hudeček, can I teach him? I will teach him free of charge, but I want to teach him." And it was he was a little crazy, Kotmel. He was very, very strength.
Passionate man.
Yeah. You had to practice, 100 hours a day, really. But thanks to him, I stayed by violin, and when I spent 3 years with him, and then when I was 12 years old, we moved to Prague, and I went back to Professor Micka to conservatoire, but I was like zero class, 3 years, because first class I could visit at age of 15. So I only went to study violin and piano to Prague Conservatoire when we were in Prague. And then my career went very fast. So it was Concertino. So we are back in Concertino. When we met, and thanks to Concertino Praga, I was selected among young pioneers. We were here pioneers. It was like Soviet Union. It was like Boy Scout, but in communist time they changed the name, and of course the program of this movement, youth movement, was also a little politic. But actually, it was a movement where the children make sports, culture, etc., etc. So I was after I got only second prize in Concertino, because you were the first. You are better.
Just for 1 year, because the next year you won anyway.
Next year I was first too, yeah, because you were not there, so that was a problem. But anyway, I was chosen by this committee who organized. It was called International Camp of Peace of Youth. And it took place in Great Britain, in Ogmore by Sea, in South Wales. So I went there with children from Czechoslovakia. We were a big country, Czechoslovakia, in those days. And there were singers. I was playing violin. There were dancers, and we went to Ogmore by Sea for this camp. And we played program. We made a musical program with everybody who could do something, and we were traveling in South Wales and playing concerts. And the chief of this camp in Ogmore by Sea, Mr. Edward Jenkins, he recommended me to the producer of BBC Cardiff, Mr. Moelfin Harris, who recorded with me about two hours program. Everything I could play, he recorded for me. And next day, they broadcasted it in those days, very popular radio program, Good Morning Wales. Everybody in Great Britain was listening to this program, as I was told. And it was heard by members of Royal Philharmonic Orchestra. They were on the tour through Great Britain. And they said, oh, it's some boy from Czechoslovakia, it's Soviet Union or Russia. Or so they called to Victor Hochhauser agency in London, because Victor worked with Oistrakh,
a lot of
Soviet artists. And so I got the invitation to play in London with the Royal Philharmonic. And it was 1967 in November 12th, 1967. So I went to London. And before this concert in London, I never played with orchestra. I was 15 years old. I never played. No, not because. So there was the only. My father was looking for some orchestra who will let me play at least one concert, at least rehearsal, because and it was the Moravian Philharmonic in Olomouc. In those days, the chief conductor Jaromír Nohail, who arranged a concert 3 times. I played for schools, extra concert for schools, like education. So, and I came to London, and I was educated. I was sovereign, absolute sovereign. And what was also very nice, that the conductor, Stanley Black, who was a pop conductor, very popular in those days. And that was also his debut in classical music. And he was such a nice man.
Which concerto did you play? Dvorak?
I played Paganini D major.
Paganini number 1.
Paganini D major, yeah. And of course, it was a big success, and my career started. They took pictures. My pictures were all over the world, and of course, it was the year 1967 where this political situation was quite different. What was later or before, you know, there was very the 60s were really very especially for our country very good, because it was the Nikita Khrushchev who liberated a little bit the Soviet Union, but especially the satellite countries. And he was friend with our president in those days and General Secretary Antonín Novotný. So that the country was really, in the 60s, the Czechoslovakia was a really free country. We could travel, not like today, of course, but we could travel to Western countries. And of course, the newspapers all over the world wrote it about Czechoslovakia. Then came the 1968, you know, and then very sadly in August 68, the brothers from all Eastern countries came to save the system, and this was so.
And it affected you because you met also somebody very important in your life in London at that time, because that was after your concert, after your debut. So talk about that.
After that was, of course, because I had a friend living in London, and that was Josef and Eva Bernard. Eva Bernardová in Czech. She was a very good pianist, and Jožka Bernard was dealing with arts and recordings and books, you know, exporting from Czechoslovakia to England. And they were friends of David Oistrakh. And of course, because my first concert, and not only this one, was organized by Victor and Lilian Hochhauser, which was wonderful lady, very well. And Victor was born in Košice, in Slovakia, in Czechoslovakia, and he could speak Slovak a little bit, you know. So it was like one family, you know. It was really best times I had, and best agency I had ever was a Victor Hochhauser of London. And they were friends with David Oistrakh, of course, with all Soviet artists, you know, a very close friend. And so they decided, because my concert was on 12th of November, and David came in next day to London with Tamara Ivanovna, wife, and Igor, Natasha. They all were in Prince of Wales Hotel. I don't know if this in Kensington, if it exists. It still exists, yeah. So, and I came to his room, to his hotel apartment, and played all concerto of Paganini for him without accompaniment. And after I finished, David says, "Maladiec." And I didn't know what this word means, because maladiec, it's now I know what it means. But I thought it's mladi, it's like maladoi. So I thought that he said that I'm young. I didn't know that maladiec means something very positive.
Very
so, and he said that he will be happy if I could come up in time to Moscow, that he would be happy that he could teach me. But it was 1967, end of year 1967. And he said he will let me know when he will be in Moscow, and I will come to study with him. So I got a letter. I still have all these, of course, all these letters, which I also found when I checked the archive of my father made for me. And he invited me in September 1968. And imagine, 21st of August came the armies from Warsaw Pact Prague, and I was supposed to go September to David, but he was so nice, man, so smart. He sent me a letter that he's very busy now and that he will let me know when will be the next day, because he knew if I go to Moscow, I will be shot down when I come back, because it was impossible. It was impossible, and unfortunately, it was such a bad decision by Mr. Brezhnev to do this stupid thing, you know, because I really we always loved Russia, Soviet Union, especially. I met so many nice people there, you know, and they were all nationalities, because Soviet Union is so beautiful. It was so beautiful. Everybody was from other countries speaking another language, you know, and but it's different than in United States, you know. It's because there are these nations, Armenian, Georgian, etc., etc., and it was really the most beautiful part of my musical life to visit this country for 4 years, until David died, and to meet such a wonderful people.
So you studied with him from 70 till 74, because I remember very well when he died, because his penultimate concert, so the concert before the last, he was conducting Brahms concerto with my mother.
Amsterdam,
exactly, and in the Park Hotel. And then she left because there was still another concert. And then he did one more concert, and then he died suddenly from heart attack. And then my mother played the concert in Moscow just the following week, played Tchaikovsky Trio and Chausson Concerto, which they were supposed to play together. They played many times that piece. And so my mother was in Tchaikovsky Trio with Oleg Krysa, who was a student, and with Liana Isakadze in Chausson, in place of David. So of course, David. Tell me, I only played for him every summer that I would go to, because I was studying with Yankelevich. There was not much, you know, but David Oistrakh always liked to hear me in the summer when he would meet me in Riga, not Riga, but Yurmala, you know, the season of Moscow Philharmonic. I always came with my uncle. And so I would come to his concerts, and he saw me sort of growing up, and he always wanted me to play for him. So I did. If David Oistrakh asked, and then he would listen and make nice comments. And then Yankelevich always found out. Somebody always told him. And he would always say, I heard that you played for Oistrakh. I said, yes. I said, why did you play? Are you leaving me for his class? I said, no, not at all. I adore. But why did you play? I said, well, you know, if David Oistrakh asks you to play, you don't say no.
But, you know, it is because you were so good student of him. He was afraid that you will go to David. But
well, there was always, you know, there was always this.
Other students from Yankelevich, always when I had my lesson in Moscow Conservatoire, because I mostly went to his apartment in Moscow, but always students from Yankelevich were sitting there, and David, when he told to his students who were ordinary students of the Conservatoire, not like me, that I only came to Moscow when David was there, he said always, if I am not here, go to Yankelevich. He is the best, and you can see how he is teaching. You know, so they were like this, but not really.
But there was mutual respect. There was mutual respect, absolutely. Yeah. And Yankelevich's class, as you remember, I don't know whether you ever went there, was always full of people. There were at least 30 people listening, just listening. And I remember, because as you just come to that second floor, there was Oystrakh's class, number 6 or number 8. Was it number 6? I think. Anyway, you're right by the. You turn right from the elevator, and there was Oystrakh's class.
And then it was the same. Yeah, in David's class also full. It was, for me, it was a surprise, because in Prague Conservatoire or Music Academy never was somebody else except the pianist, teacher, and the student. And I love that, because there were, and such a big names were sitting there, like students, So I was, but really it was beautiful. David was teaching, always playing with us, and it was nice to see him for 1 meter distance, how he were. And I was 4 or 5 times in Zurich, taking lessons from Nathan Milstein at his master class, and it was, and they were students from one teacher, with David, from Stoliarsky, from Odessa. Stoliarsky.
Before, and because then Milstein then later went to Auer for a little bit.
Yeah.
But he was really taught by Stoliarsky, and I remember the documentary which he made with Pinka Zuckerman, and they always talked when he arrived from Odessa. Auer would call him Chernomorskaya technika, the Black Sea technique.
Yeah,
an amazing technique, but Chernomorskaya, Black Sea technique.
Black Sea, yeah. And it was a very similar teaching, Nathan. Also all the time with the playing with us, and but what, that David and Nathan as well, but David, he only watched you started to play, and somehow, like Bluetooth, it jumped his idea, and he said, yes, I know, and you played it, and he said, now it's okay. But he always, what was fantastic, that David, if you didn't know how to do something, he said, okay, you can do it like that or like that. But he was very happy when you brought your own idea, your own interpretation, feelings, and then he said, oh, it's wonderful how you play. Can I do it also as you do it? Because he said the bad teacher who doesn't learn anything from his student, that is a bad teacher. He was very grosszügig. I don't know.
Very open, very open.
And
I think the last thing he wanted, he didn't want his student to sound like him, like an imitation of him. He appreciated the ones with a real strong personality. But, like Gidon Kremer, like Oleg Kagan, Liana Sakadze, they were all different. They were all different because Yankelevich was more of a disciplinarian.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. And I remember at the age of 9, I came to here to play Prelude in Allegro, Pugnani, Chrysler. And then there's on the passage there, because I didn't study with Lezarov, I just came to him, and he said, oh, interesting fingerings. Where did you get it? I said, I was a little bit afraid, but I said, Yuri Isayevich, I made them up. I said, really? I said, yeah, these are my own. So pretty good. Now change them and play mine.
Yeah. And that was a big difference from David.
That was a big difference.
Oh, it's wonderful. He tried,
Oh, exactly. Oh, what a great idea. Yeah. But because Yankelevich did not play, so he had dogma.
That was exactly my teacher in Conservatoire, Dr. Mitska, as I named him already. He was also the teacher from the table. But Professor Snitil at Music Academy, who was my last Czech teacher, he played himself in Vlach Quartet, also solo. So he was much more flexible. But I must tell you, Dimka, one thing about David Oistrakh, because he knew we are friends. Yeah, he knew. I always say, "What are you doing tomorrow?" I said, "I go with Dimka somewhere, Sitkovetsky." And he told me once. You know, Václav, if Julian, father of Dimka, would not die, me and Leonid Kogan will not exist, because it was the greatest violinist ever. And then you gave me his Khachaturian Violin Concerto CD, live And because I played this concerto as well, and when I heard how he plays, I said, never again. Never again cacciatore concerto.
Yeah, that was the life. There is an interesting story to it. My mother told me, of course, I was in her belly at that point. It was in September 54, beginning of September. I was born at the end of September, but he was in Romania playing with the Azeri conductor Niazi, and or no, maybe with Khachaturian himself in Romania. And he played the last movement, the tempo and the every note was unbelievable.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean, it was just
incredible.
yeah, incredible. And my mother, when she heard the recording later on, she said, "Why did you play? You played it so fast." I said, "Yes, I was really in a hurry. I was anxious to come to Baku, not to miss the birth of my son." Because
It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
yeah,
But you
he
know,
said,
I met Aram Khachitra last time in the hospital when he was there when David Oistrakh survived the last heart attack which he survived, and I came to visit him to the hospital. I flew to Moscow and visited him in hospital. And Khachaturian was operated, and he came to see. So I saw him, and he asked me, Václav, do you play my violin concerto? I say, not yet, not yet. I will. And then you gave me this CD.
"Yes." And
I said, oh, it's impossible. How can I play? And I thought it's normal to play it like that, you know, the tempo,
well,
but it's
those
impossible to play it like your father. It's really impossible.
it's really quite the speaking of my father and another giant, Leonid Koganov, who of course you saw in Moscow Conservatory. You came up with this wonderful project with Supraphone,
Yeah.
which was called the Giants of Violin. Tell me
Yeah.
about that project, because you invited me to be part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was after the revolution already in 1989, which changed the
Yeah.
regime in,
The
and
regime,
you
exactly.
know, of course, I adore those three violinists. You know, this is really without that you are one son of one of the greatest ever violinists in the world, but the style of their playing, there are three giants, and everyone is different. You can you listen, oh, it's David Fyodorovich.
5 seconds. Yeah.
5 seconds, and this is Kogan, and this is Julian Sitkovetsky. All three present. Nowadays, I must say, they are great violinists, but I don't know who are they. If he's from Japan, Korea, or, you know, wonderful, really, they are 15 years old and they play fantastic. But these personalities, like they were, and of course there were another Isaac Stern and Henrik Schering, etc., in
And
Western world. Heifetz,
Heifetz and
but he was
Chrysler,
from
Menon,
Heifetz was
5
from the same
seconds. Yeah.
the same nest. Yeah, but these three. Unfortunately, I never met your father, but I know you. You are my friend. Of course, I met David and Leonid and his son Pavlik, also our friend, mutual, and the old family. And I said, because after the revolution, in my country, we were more orienting to the Western Europe and America, and I said, please don't forget those fantastic Soviet musicians who loved our country so much, who were so happy if they could come to play in Prague. And so I said, we will make a tribute to them and make this CD with all these three. And then we got the idea that I have friends, their sons are my friends, Dimka Sitkovetsky, Igor Oistrakh, Pavlik Kogan. And so we made these three CDs as a tribute to this great Russian violinist. And we made Quattro Stagioni with Pavlik Kogan. And then we made the Bach concertos with you. and then Haydn also with Mama, but for this trilogy was this Bach,
Vivaldi, Bach, and then Mozart with us.
And Mozart with Igor Oistrakh. And I think it is very nice because these records are so beautiful, and we made it in the years when still the CD was good, because the people were buying. Now everybody can get anything from internet free of charge, and we sold thousands of these.
Vivaldi became one of the biggest bestsellers, I think, of Supraphon.
Until now, is bestseller in last 30 years in classical music. So it was. I was happy that we still had the time to make these recordings, because nowadays it would be much more complicated, because the companies doesn't exist almost with the gramophone business. It's really very technical facilities actually are killing this industry.
Because it's so available. People don't listen to CDs anymore. They just listen on YouTube, where
YouTube,
YouTube, because everything is there, or they pay maybe, like I pay actually to Spotify or Idagio. I think there's good sites, because they're fantastic collection, especially Idagio for some rare recordings, sometimes live recording. I love that. I believe that if you have something of quality, I always like to pay for quality.
Of course.
Now, now, of course, in the times of free things, people are not always paying. Speaking of, there was a question like this. What do you think is the best way for the young performers to be heard and noticed today? Is it still competitions like you and I did, or auditions now? Or maybe now more online material is important, like the website, the YouTube, social media and everything. What's your view? You and I being the old timers, but you are involved, because you're very much involved with young violinists, and you've been great support and promoter of young. But what would you suggest when somebody asks you, how can I be heard? Whether it's in Czech Republic or anywhere else.
If you want to make a career as a classical violinist playing Brahms, Tchaikovsky, it's really very, very difficult nowadays. So unfortunately, there are few violinists who are not as good as we will say that they are really good. So they make such a show business appearances. I don't want to name them. No, not necessary. And it is for some youngsters, it is very. It's like drag, They see, we have also such an exotic violinist here, and who do this kind of presentation, and of course they are on the TV and they make money, But I am very happy that my students who come to my masterclass, that they don't want to go this way and want to go like I did, like you did. Of course, we lived in the times when, if you want good competition, like you won this Chrysler in Vienna, I was lucky that I was invited immediately to Royal Philharmonic Orchestra. So after concerto, I didn't need to go to other competition. So then, if you were working hard, then you had really chance to make a career and to only play violin, not to teach and to play in the orchestra, and so the time was quite different, and also there were a lot more possibilities to play concerts, more orchestras. If you see East Germany in the GDR, almost the village has symphony orchestra. It was fantastic. I went to East Germany, and in 1 month I had 25 concerts, every concert with other orchestra. Now you go to Japan for 1 or 2 concerts, it's crazy. In Japan we went for 20, 30 concerts, America as well, And now, of course, the planet is smaller and smaller because of course, I speak before COVID time, cheap air tickets, So, and for the youngsters, it's problem. They won 1 competition, 2 competitions, 3 competitions, but there are so many competitions nowadays, and every 2-3 years the competition repeats. New winners come, another winners. So the winner of competition has 2-3 years to play a few concerts, and then new winners come, and
devalued.
And if you have if you are not lucky that you meet your David Oistrakh or your Schulte, like Andras Schiff, my friend pianist, who helps you from to start. Then it's really a miracle if someone really makes career in today's world, really. And I am trying to help them. At least the problem for them is to buy a violin, masterpiece violin, even new modern, but of course not
very expensive.
Stradivari or Del Gesù. You cannot. If I have the money for Del Gesù, then I don't need to play violin at all nowadays. But it wasn't in our time. It was still possible. I bought my precious violin very cheap. Of course, in those days it was also a lot of money, but nowadays
you could earn.
Exactly. But nowadays it's possible. So we have in our masterclass in this little spa in Luhačovice in Moravia. The best participant gets as a prize gets the masterpiece violin made by Czech violin maker. And for these young people, they are 15, 16, 17 years old. It's a big present, because they usually have borrowed violin, or very bad violin. So that is the first step. They get the violin, and then I take them on my concert. I give them chance. I have recital, 1 piece or 2 pieces plays this child, or with orchestra we play at least double concerto, or he plays something with the orchestra solo. So, but I am, also we have some small festivals in Prague where we present young musicians, and also in the cities around. But of course, this is very little I can help. I am not the chief of big orchestra or big festival.
I understand,
but we are trying.
I think you've done a remarkable amount of what you can do, because now Czech Republic is not it's an important culture, very important, and very you have fantastic history, of Musliviček, Smetana, Dvorak, Suk, the composers, Janeček. You are fantastic. And also violinists. There was Jan Kubelik, and there was Vasha Pšichoda, and there was Josef Suk, and there was you. And so now
Josef Slavík was in time of Paganini. They was also great.
Yes,
and of course we have also Baroque music and classical music. This Mannheim school, and it was made of Czech composers actually. So the tradition is good. So we have, but now we have good followers in the violin school, and I'm very happy that the best ones were also my summer students from my masterclass in Luhačovice. And this is Josef Spacek, who is a finalist of Queen Elizabeth. He's very good, very nice boy, and very good. But he's one of them. He worked 9 years as the first concertmaster of Czech Philharmonic. He was 9 years sitting in the orchestra, and now he finished. He finished because he tries to make only solo career, but the COVID problem came, and it's tragic. It's really tragic. And second, Jan Mráček, who won also Chrysler, like you, Chrysler competition. But he's also now, after Josef Spacek, he took his chair in Czech Philharmonic. He's fantastic violinist, you know. But, you know, they have mortgages for
of course. They have to pay,
leasing for and
life in Prague is not cheap. The life in Prague is not cheap. No. I understand. But, you know, it's interesting because also from the conductors, you know, of course, Rafael Kubelik, who's, you know, related to Jan Kubelik.
Karel Ančerl.
Yes, Ančerl was fantastic. Did you ever play with Karel Ančerl?
No, unfortunately, because I started actually in 1968. And after, we had to plan to play together. But after August 68, Karel Ančerl emigrated to Canada because he is a Holocaust survivor. His first family died.
He was in Theresienstadt.
Yeah, and his first family all died in the Nazi camps. Yeah, and he survived. And you know what is a very nice story? A friend of ours. By the way, her son is sponsoring. He's the greatest sponsor of our music festival in Prague. We have this concert for youth, and her father of his mother, her father was also in Theresienstadt, and because he was a music lover, and always when Karel Ančerl was supposed to go to Auschwitz, where he will be. He was a surgeon in this Theresienstadt, and he wrote it him that he has typhus, that he is chief, and so he had to stay in Theresienstadt, and so he survived because of father of our friend, you know. So but he was fantastic conductor. I think he was the best. He was after Václav Tali, who was of course a symbol of Czech Philharmonic Orchestra before the World War II, and after the Karel Ančerl was really great, and still his recordings are absolutely fantastic, but very nice man. And he died
in Toronto.
In Toronto, and he was 65.
Yeah, he was already quite old, but he was wonderful. There is an interesting recording of Glenn Gould playing Beethoven 5, Emperor, with Karel Ančerl conducting. He was supposed to be another pianist. Glenn Gould already stopped playing in public, but it was in Toronto. He didn't have to travel or anything, and his manager told me this story. Walter Homburger, the late manager of Glenn Gould, he said he just had a call from Toronto Symphony that their soloist is indisposed, could not play. Maybe on the off chance Glenn Gould decides, and just in a couple of hours he went with no rehearsal and with Karel Ančerl conducting. So there's a very memorable recording of it. He was a fantastic. My mother played with him. My mother knew, because she used to come in the 60s to Prague Spring Festival. Yeah, of course. That's so you have a very rich history, but of course today probably would not be possible just for homegrown talent like you to live all your life just in your own country. You'd have to go abroad, maybe for studies, because it's probably impossible just to be always at home.
Also, before the revolution, we had the classical music was very supported by government, by the state. Of course, it was a propaganda for socialism, that we have world-class musicians, dancers, and etc. And we had such an organization, in English would be Circles of Friends of Classical Music.
Circles.
And it was the organizers in small cities, and we had only in Czech Republic, and also there were another in Slovakia, but only in Czech Republic, we had about 360 organizers of classical music, of chamber music concert, and they organized average amount was 10 concerts a year. So if you imagine, it was 3,600 concerts of chamber music, only these circles. Only in Czech Republic. In Czech Republic only. In Slovakia, in Slovakia were another 150. Yeah, so it was 500 by 10, so 5,000. But then there were orchestras. So we have a lot of orchestras here who organized concert with the orchestra, but also organized chamber concert. So we had, I don't know, 7,000-8,000 concerts only in this, with Slovakia together, country with 14 million people, organized 7,000 concerts of classical music. So we had problems sometimes.
It was
full the people liked it, you know. So you could really live. That's why we had so many string quartets here, because they could live really only from concerts they played in the Czechoslovakia. But now, of course, exists I don't know, 50 these circles, but they have no money, you know, and of course the life was also much cheaper, because now apartment in Prague costs a fortune, you know. So it was different. Of course,
different world. But how do you see, for instance, the performing arts? You know, after the pandemic, how do you think we've all been affected, and what are the biggest challenges, apart obviously from, you know, vaccination and the practical things, but when things hopefully will come back to what they call new normal, who knows what that is,
you know,
with that, how do you think, what could we take with us that we learned something? Maybe we had all this time to think, all this time to wait until the concert life begins. How you think our world will change, in your opinion?
You know, I am a little bit afraid, because the politicians are not always music lovers, classical music lovers, and they will use COVID debts they made so that we could we can live normally now. Shops are full and we are not hungry, and eating works, everything. And they will use these COVID problems for reducing expenses for the culture. So I am a little bit afraid, because the days when the nobility was supporting the composers like Beethoven, Mozart, and etc., these great or church like Johann Sebastian Bach. So they are not such a politicians nowadays, because they prefer football and other sports and rock music. So that what I would be afraid that the classical music will be probably suffering much more than it was before COVID. But
marginalized.
But I don't want to bring bad news.
No. Who knows? We'll know what.
I am optimist.
Yes, yes,
So
you were always an optimist. As long as I know you were always an optimist. But I think also maybe we were always in the minority anyway. We could never, before, maybe if you look at 19th century, yes, they were rock stars. Paganini was a rock star.
yeah,
Franz Liszt was a rock
Roxy.
star.
Even
Adelina
Kubelik,
Patti,
Jan
huh?
Kubelik, Jan Kubelik.
Even Jan Kubelik was still a rock star.
In Chicago, he played for 150,000 people.
There you go.
Because
There you go. It's incredible. It's incredible.
yeah.
I mean, Anton Rubinstein gave
Oh,
45 concerts in 30 days in America. I mean,
yeah,
unbelievable. Anton, not Artur.
yeah,
Artur, of course, we know. Anton. Wieniawski came once, and then yeah. I mean, they were before the rock stars or pop stars became pop stars. Classical music were, because when Melba, the famous Nelly Melba, came to Venice, there was a procession of gondolas
yeah.
greeting her. Just like, now maybe even Madonna, if she comes there, she doesn't get that kind of greetings. It was really the
Yeah.
highest class. They were the Michael Jackson and, Madonnas of that time. But this time, of course, is different. But numbers is not everything. And money and numbers in our business cannot be measured. How much is Haydn symphonies worth? Is it €5 that you buy the score,
Yeah.
the little score, or is it 5 million euros? You still cannot compose a symphony like that. So it's something intangible, something that cannot be valued by numbers. And don't you think that real music lovers who've been starving, like we've been starving, not having concerts, not having live audience, one hopes that they were also starving to have performers, to have that incredible chemistry and that physicality, like what we talked about earlier in the program. When you hear a live orchestra, it's a miraculous feeling. You just your hair stands up. And I want to end our program on the positive note, because for me, our last meeting in Prague, first of all, Prague for the first time in September 2020, it looked a little bit like the Prague in '66, because there was no tourist. All the years before, there were more and more, in Vivaldi, 4 seasons from every church and everything. It's a little bit of a disaster, disaster by numbers. This time I could go anywhere, the Staromesto and this and that. I loved it. And all the play. Of course, it's strange, but it reminded me. So maybe just, thinking of this, 50s plus years bridge, maybe we're going through a period of what they now in computer world they call reset. Reset, a new beginning. And maybe some of the things that will disappear, maybe they should disappear. Maybe it's not
Exactly.
bad if they disappear. Maybe, and the audience, the true music lovers, the ones that we love, and we are also music lovers when we hear music, maybe we will have our own very special but very loyal and passionate audience, because I cannot imagine that it's only us, the performers, want to perform. I think the audience will gradually, when they feel comfortable, when they're vaccinated, they're not afraid to catch COVID, they will come and experience that thrill of a live performance. What do you think?
Yes. And that's why I am optimistic, because
Yeah.
when you were here last time, it was end of this 3 months, because shortly afterwards, slowly came lockdown again. But we had, after first wave of COVID, we had 3 months free of
Freedom.
everything, concert, everything. And the people only after this 5 months or 4 months of that lockdown,
Fine.
they were so hungry for classical, especially for classical music. that even the organizers who were used to have, I don't know, half hall full, they said, we have all concerts, even unknown musicians, we have all sold out. The people are angry, they are happy that they can come to concert. So that's why I'm optimistic. Maybe the government will give less money all over the world, but we will have more audience and we will have more pleasure to play the music. And of course, we have, if you have your apartment or house, you know, you don't need much money to buy food to survive, you know. But the main thing is if you have roof over your head and good family, you have wonderful family. My wife is wonderful lady. We are very happy. We have good relatives here, and we are happy. The main thing that we all are healthy and we can continue with our playing. You are younger, so I hope a few years more.
The same age.
Yeah.
We're the same age. Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I hope the people will return, the audience will return, and we will celebrate with them every concert, and we will enjoy much more than we enjoyed before. I think
exactly.
And I'm looking forward for every meeting with you, Dimka, and with our audience, and see you in autumn in Prague again.
In September, I'm looking forward so much. Thank you so much, Václav. It's been a wonderful, wonderful reunion for us. And hopefully our viewers also enjoyed, and they will find also on my YouTube channel, there's a lot of recordings of Julian Sitkovetsky, of course, and also my mother, Bela Davidovich, and of Vast. All the recording that we mentioned, the Giants of Ireland, they're also on that YouTube that we made together. So please subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can watch this program later on, and I will see you in 1 week. But thank you so much, Václav. It was really very, very special.
Thank you for the invitation, and please greetings to your mother, Belochka.
I will, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you for everything, Dimka.